uh, my brother who was 4 years older than I had worked in Dillon and working for the county and whatnot. It seemed kind of attractive idea to me, but I thought maybe I'd like to work on a ranch. And I had this uncle had a store in Dillon, and this is where fate enters in. And the first guy that came in the store, name was George O'Connor. And my uncle said, I got this nephew in California. He kind of like to work on a ranch. You got anything for him? Oh, no, you get these damn kids from town. They don't know a damn thing. You follow them around all summer. Just about the time they know something, they go back to school. Thanks, but no thanks. So, okay. So the next one came in was Fred Hershey, Jill's dad. And got the nephew in California. Oh, hell, send him out.
And that?
And what if George O'Connell said yes? Yeah. There's where your life has come to a fork in the road.
So then when did you meet Jill?
And then I came out in the summer of 1941, and she had been babysitting for one of our neighbors up at the Jackson end of the valley, and been helping. This is Dora Dooling, and she's a wealthy lady in the valley. And so they always went over the hill for a picnic on 4th of July. So we came out the 3rd of July. I came up on the train to Dillon from California. And my aunt and uncle brought me out, and we were going to go on the picnic. So anyhow, the evening of July 3rd, Jill comes down from her babysitting job. She comes in. It was kind of nippy. And she had a knee-length camel's hair coat on. And I was kind of across the living room when she walked in, and they introduced me, and she's fat.
You thought that?
Yeah. And the next morning, the camel's hair coat was gone and business picked up.
Oh. When did you go out on your first date, or what did you do on your first? Do you remember?
Well, I was around all summer haying, and we had a couple of dates at Fetty's there in town, and then she went to Missoula for a year and didn't like it, the college, and she had an aunt and uncle in Sacramento, and she came down and wanted to go to the University of California, Berkeley, but she had to pick up some credits, and she did it at, I guess it's Sacramento State now they call it, and at that time I was at Stanford, and so between Palo Alto and Sacramento, I kind of beat that road up here for that next year, and then January of '43 I had to go in the service. So
did you get engaged before you went to the service?
Yeah,
you did.
October in '42.
You got you got engaged in '42.
Yeah, we were married in March '44. Yeah, so we were engaged for a year.
Oh,
or so.
Where did you get married at?
Little Rock, Arkansas.
What?
Yeah, I was in the service.
Ew.
Yeah.
So it was who stood up with you?
Actually, my dad did.
Oh, he came.
Yeah, and there were some friends from the base who were there at the wedding. But my own brother was in India at that time. He also was in the Air Force, and so he obviously couldn't make the wedding. But and then Joyce, was her sister Joyce stood up with Jill.
Now, did you stay in Arkansas for quite a while?
Yeah,
or?
I was a flight instructor there in a little town called Stuttgart. It's right out in the middle of Arkansas.
Stuttgart.
Yeah.
A good German name, eh?
Yeah.
Or something, I would think.
Yeah, and that's interesting that you mentioned it. There was a lot of pro-German feeling in that community at the time. It was a funny place to build an airfield, except they had a lot of land to work with the rice paddies, most of the rice country down there.
Interesting.
And it was an air base, and then as soon as I was commissioned and got my wings in December '43, and I was reassigned as a flight instructor to Stuttgart, Arkansas, which is where nobody wanted to go.
Oh,
and of course, that's where I got assigned, and it was 60 miles from Little Rock, so we were married in Little Rock.
Then did you, from Arkansas, then you got out of the service, and then where did you move?
What happened to me, after Germany surrendered, the demand for pilots started to wane a little bit, and I was reassigned to 4-engine bombers, and was sent to a base in northern Alabama to transition into 4-engine bombers with the idea to go out to the Pacific in the big B-29s. And then the war in Europe ended, and so I got reassigned to a ferry unit that was picking up returning bombers from Europe. The guys would bring them into Savannah, Georgia, and we'd go pick them up and take them either to a graveyard where they were scrapped or to a modification center for the newer and better ones to be modified to go out to the Pacific. And that's what I was doing when the war ended. And so I actually never had to go overseas. But I did fight the Battle of Arkansas. That was just about as tough.
Yeah, no kidding. We know Art, yeah. So you lived in Arkansas. Then where did you move? Did you go back to California?
Yes, yeah. My dad was an executive in a company called Fairchild Aerial Surveys. Did photographic mapping.
I remember your story about that.
And I did that. But that was a lousy job in the sense that Jill by then was home with a couple little kids. And it was a job very dependent on good weather. And I'd be assigned, okay, honey, got to go out to Phoenix. There'll be a job there. It'll take 4 days for us to do. And we'd go out there in his bad stretch of weather. And it didn't take 4 days. It took 10 days. But by then I was late to the next job. Honey, I can't come home. I have to go straight to Bakersfield or wherever. And that was, and then we got reassigned to New York. They had an office in New York. And we got assigned back there. And we lived in New York for a year or more.
And that was better than Arkansas.
Well, it was same deal. I was gone and never quite sure when I was going to get home. And then her dad and mom didn't like what they saw, my being gone for those indefinite periods like that.
She missed you terribly.
Come on out to the ranch and I'll fix you up with a place. So that's how we ended up back here.
When did you move here?
In 1950, we moved to Montana. And we bought this place in 1954. There was a wealthy family in the community named Browning, the Browning gun people, and they had big holdings here in the valley. That family had 58 participating members, and Matt Browning was a young guy, was running the whole thing, and it just got to be too much, and so they sold out. And Jill's dad and another family in the Big Hole bought most of their properties here in the Big Hole. This was one of the pieces.
I see. How many acres does Heidi and her husband and you guys own?
Heidi has 15,000 acres, I guess. I'm not quite sure.
At one time, it was really big, though.
Well, and then there was the two boys were Dick and Jack, and they each ended up with about that much ground. And their dad split it pretty much in the middle. And then, of course, Heidi has come by Dick's part of it. She only has the one brother, and he's disadvantaged a little bit.
So maybe at one time there was like 20,000 acres?
I think so, probably. Yeah.
Ish.
And since the boys were split up, Dick went his way and Jack went his way. They've added pieces in addition to their original holdings, you might say.
Sure.
And then Dick, Heidi's always remained close. Jack's son, he had two kids, Jan and Frederick, and Jan is gone, and Fred is in the valley, but I never see him. I see him and Dylan about once a year, and he's
elderly,
a busy guy, and you just never.
So then you had two kids. Go ahead.
Get along fine. This is one of those.
Don't see it. Yeah. So before you moved home, you had two, and then did you have the rest of them here? The rest of your babies?
John and Lacey were born in Pasadena. Lori was born in Beaumont, Texas. Tom was born in Butte, and the rest of them were born here. Lori,
in Dillon.
Lori's our Texan. Yeah.
Is that right?
And the two older in Californians, the rest of them were born here.
Here at this house?
No,
in Butte.
Yeah.
But those were some fun rides to the hospital.
Yeah.
Especially after.
Tell me about it.
Well, I bet. Especially if they were winter babies.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we always made it, but it was a close call a couple times.